Good evening. Welcome to Talkin Montauk. Today is Monday, September 30th, 1996. My name is Bob Ficalora, and I'll be your host tonight. I'm the acting president of the Montauk Friends of Olmsted Parks Corporation, which is a corporation established under the not-for-profit law of the state of New York to care for the Benson Reservation properties in Montauk. This show is the first in a series of 5 planned to be aired live here on LTV Monday nights at 6. And so for the rest of this month, you'll be able to enjoy what I hope will be very informative and enlightening programs about our history. I'll also be hosting public meetings available for everyone to come to at Third House every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Please think about coming, tell your neighbors. It should be interesting. You can ask me questions, look at maps, talk about our rights, and think about what it means to Montauk. I think it's a very positive and beautiful thing that our predecessors did such good things for us and left us such a great legacy. The purpose of these broadcasts is to give you the fullest information about your rights and about the rights of the Montauk community, not only individually, the landowners' rights, but also the political rights that were established with the Dongan Patent and through a New York State statute. And the reason I'm here is because I feel it's a personal responsibility to inform you of these rights. We went through a long legal case which just ended, and also because when I incorporated the Montauk Friends of Olmsted Parks, I took on certain legal responsibilities to make sure that the community, who are the intended beneficiaries of these rights, are fully informed that these are your lands, these are your properties, and we should take control of them and put them to our best and most enjoyable use. So tonight, I'll focus on the Benson Reservation's lawsuit, which just ended, and the court judgments and orders which were issued out of Riverhead and Brooklyn and Albany. And I'll talk about what this means to the community, and I'll show you the maps, and I have them behind me, so that you can see where these properties are, and we can start looking at them and just determining how we want to use them. I will also talk for a little bit today, and I'll get into this more in future programs, the broader powers of a trustee corporation in Montauk. And the broader powers that we have through the Dongan Patent and through Chapter 139 of the laws of 1852 are political powers, and they're governance powers. It gives us the power to govern Montauk and to assume control of things like our beaches, foreshores, harbors, the trust lands, the Benson reservations, etc. And some of you are familiar with my actions at Culloden Point, and I'll be talking somewhat about that, but that's in future programs to come. Finally tonight, I will address some frequently asked questions, and concerns that people have brought to me, like, what are our risks here? What am I doing? What's my interest? Why am I doing this? Things like that. I'll go over that for you to the best of my ability. Okay, the Benson reservations. What's been fascinating to me after going through 11 years of litigation, with about 7 years of personal involvement in that litigation, is that most people don't understand that we have community trust lands that are ours, that the rights to them are in favor of everyone that owns land in Montauk. They're our properties, and it's the best and most effective legal way to protect property. This is what the Benson family did. They used covenants and deeds to protect forever certain parcels and beachfront properties in favor of a large group of people in interest, which is the proprietors of Montauk. Excuse me? So the same historical blindness has been accorded to the 27 years of governance which Montauk enjoyed under the trustees of Montauk from 1852 until 1879, and also the period in which the Benson family owned Montauk, which was almost 40 years. Almost 40 years of Benson control and stewardship, a period in which Frederick Law Olmsted and the Olmsted firm, the most famous landscape architecture firm in the history of the United States, was here and drew plans. When Teddy Roosevelt was here as a guest of the Bensons and the proprietors. But for some reason, we haven't been told, or the community hasn't been made aware of this phenomenal history, and it's just such a beautiful history. So I'll try to enlighten us about that. So let's talk about the Benson reservations. Okay. Most of you are familiar with the fence that was put up by Nicola Biasi along the old Montauk Highway in 1984, in September of 1984. That commenced litigation, which began in 1985, by a group of adjacent property owners, motel owners, including the Breakers Motel, which is my wife's family business. And it took us until just the 10th of this month, October 10th, to get the final ruling out of the highest court of the state of New York, the appellate division of the state of New York, that denied Mr. Biasi's final appeal of the lower court and the appellate division's unanimous decision that the covenants are enforceable, that he had full notice that those covenants were in existence, and that those covenants constituted a negative easement over the land. And we'll talk a little bit about negative easements in a few minutes. And another name for a negative easement, which came up in an 1851 lawsuit, is equitable title. So I'll try to make it more understandable by interchanging those two terms. So I know this is going to be a little bit dense factually, but I'm going to go through the history of the lands in Montauk. And I think for some people this is just going to be hopefully fascinating. The chain of title in Montauk begins with the Montauk tribe of Indians. The Montauk tribe of Indians were the acknowledged owners of Montauk under English law. They were acknowledged by the governor of the king to be the owners of Montauk. And in 1648, East Hampton, up to the Montauk line, was purchased by the governors of Connecticut. The governor of the colony of Connecticut and the governor of the colony of New Haven purchased East Hampton up to the Montauk-Napeague line and then turned it over to the settlers a few years later. Okay, but in doing that, they recognized that the Montauk lands were the property of the Montauks. Okay, and certain things happened to the Indians. They had smallpox, and there was a war with the Narragansetts, and gradually over time, they gave up their lands through deeds, through deeded conveyances to the proprietors, the men that would become the owners. Those deeds were confirmed by colonial patents, and what those are very much equivalent to a patent of an invention, but they applied in this case to patents over the land, and they confirmed the deeds out of the sovereign Indians to the proprietors. Okay. The proprietors owned the land, all of the land in Montauk, subject to the rights reserved in those deeds to the Indians until 1879. And in 1879, there was a dispute between two of the proprietors, or a number of the proprietors, and the rest, and it was put up at auction, and most of the community is familiar with the sale to Arthur W. Benson of Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, when he purchased the entirety of Montauk, also subject to Indian rights. Mr. Benson enjoyed fishing and the outdoors, and he brought some of his friends together and formed the Montauk Association, a corporation. And the first conveyance of land by Mr. Benson was to the Montauk Association, a corporation which he had formed. And that corporation began to convey title to individuals in the Montauk Association around the 1882 time frame. Well, the Indians were still on the land. The Indians were on the land until 1885 or so, when Mr. Benson took action to relocate them and attempt to alienate them from their rights. And certain further deeds were issued and conveyed. The Shadmore Peace, which was the Hoyt land, and others were conveyed over the ensuing years. Okay. Then Arthur Benson died in 1889, I believe it was, and his heirs took over the estate.